Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is your boy Jay Nicole, and right now we're doing Module 6 of the Wholesale Masterclass, and this is where we talk about market mastery. Okay, so after this module, you will learn everything based on how to calculate numbers and how to figure out just give you the principles, basically, the skills on how to calculate and see what a good deal is, right? So let's get right into it. Get right into it. All right, market mastery. So here's what we're going to cover. Like I said before, we got to know our numbers. That's the biggest thing that new or beginner real estate investors / wholesalers have issues with is knowing your numbers. If you talk to any experienced flipper or buy and hold person, that's the biggest critique for wholesalers is, oh man, I get these quote unquote deals, but they're not really deals. They don't know how to run their numbers. They're not real estate investors. And we're gonna break that myth here because we're gonna learn how to calculate and actually just do our homework. So this is what we're gonna do. You'll have that skill set to separate yourself from the mediocre wholesalers, right? And a part of that comes with research, just knowing your market, whatever market you're in. We got to get down to the nitty gritty. What's going on in there? See what properties are selling and for how much. So that way you could negotiate a good deal. Again, calculate the ARV. We spoke about this briefly in the reverse wholesaling, which is the after repair value. Just going to get to the nitty gritty. And then MAO, I hope y'all got a pen and paper because it's a lot of formulas. It's a lot of what do you call it? It's a lot of not abbreviations, acronyms. There you go. It's a lot of acronyms that we're gonna cover. Real estate is just all language and lingo, so don't get intimidated by these words and nuances. Before, like when I first started, it's just gonna be new for you. Don't get too discouraged by it. Just go with the flow. But MAO is maximum allowable offer, which after you calculate the ARV, that's how you can determine the most you can offer to a motivated seller when you're talking to them and trying to figure out what's a good deal. That's the baseline, the maximum allowable offer. And at the end, we're going to finalize the numbers, talk to our peers and make sure we got a good deal, right? So if you don't know, I got a newsletter / website, jnicomb.com. Feel free to check it out. We got some cool updates regarding the course. I'm steadily putting out new content, so you definitely want to check it out. All right. Also, I'm on YouTube and socials. Just at me at jnicomb to look me up. And also, you got to share the course, baby. If you feel like this is going to impact you, which I'm sure it is, we're going to start a revolution and change people's lives together. So let's get it, man. But before we go any further, as you all know, this is the most important video in the entire course. All right. So please pay attention. Make sure you got pen and paper. We want to watch the entire video. Don't skip. Don't fast forward. But as always, pro tip, you can always watch it in 2-speed if you kind of know a little bit about real estate. All right. But for my newbies, let's go. We got to know our numbers. Okay. Like I said, this is the biggest critique that wholesalers get all the time is that we don't know our numbers, and we here to dispel that myth, okay? So numbers don't lie, all right? So wholesalers get a very bad rap because they often lock up a deal without having a buyer first, and then when the closing date arrives, they are nowhere to be found. This can be very traumatic for the motivated seller, especially if they are depending on you to close the deal in order to move. So I cannot tell y'all how many times I talked to motivated sellers where they said, oh yeah, I had a deal, but we never closed. And I always ask them, really? Wow, that's strange. Like, why didn't you close? And they'd be like, yeah, well, I tried to call a buyer, but I couldn't get them anymore. And I just don't know. Or they might say, yeah, I spoke to him, but he said the funding fell through. A lot of times, wholesalers have a hard time telling the truth and being honest with what they do. So, a part of that is you got to be a truth teller and a truth seeker. So, this is why I try to stress and urge you guys to do reverse wholesaling, right? Because therefore you don't have to worry about a deal falling under contract. It's less likely. Now, I'm not going to say it's 100% guaranteed or foolproof, but it's less likely that you're going to not be able to close if you already spoke to the buyer, you know where he needs to be at in order to get the deal done. Okay, so 9 times out of 10, if you already have that, the green light from one buyer, and for whatever reason he's not ready to close, 9 times out of 10 you definitely in a good price range for another person to come in, right? So it's always good to know your numbers. And initially, when you first starting out, you're not really gonna know. Even with this video, please just watch it a bunch of times. But still, I want you to take action. And part of taking action is doing reverse wholesaling and talking to cash buyers and leveraging their experience, right? But ultimately, you'll get to this point where you'll run your own numbers and figure out deals for yourself, right? So homework. When a wholesaler knows their numbers, then they can confidently make offers knowing they'll close a deal. And we talked about this in the last module, right? Because it's all about the confidence. So if you just starting out and you don't have the confidence, leverage the cash buyer's confidence of getting the deal done. Now, ultimately, when you get to the point where you close a few deals, you'll get a better understanding of the market. You'll get a better understanding of how to run your numbers, figure out what he's doing, and just you'll have more experience. But initially starting out, it's best to really know your numbers, because the worst thing you can do is get a property under contract and you get it under contract for too high and it cannot sell, right? Because those conversations are super tough to have with the motivated seller, saying that either A, you can't close because it's not a deal, or B, you have to have a price reduction of like 30,000 because that's where the buyer is at and that's where you need to be at to make money, right? Both those conversations are super tough, and if you do your homework on the back end, you'll have a less likelihood of having those conversations. All right. Okay. Let's get to the nitty gritty. Okay. So research comps. For those that don't know, comps are comparables. In real estate, the best way to determine value for a residential property is figuring out similar properties in your neighborhood, right? So comparable sales is a key part of wholesale and real estate because it helps determine the value of a property and set the right offer price. So like I said, in residential real estate, that's how they determine value, right? If you order an appraisal on a house, an appraiser that's licensed, he went to an appraisal school, I don't know what they do, but a part of their homework is pretty much basic, right? They come to the property, they look around for about like 5 minutes, they take pictures, and then they just go on the computer and they look at the past 6 months, what has sold typically in a quarter-mile radius of your property. And they pick like 2 to 3 properties. No, they pick 3 properties. And then they adjust for like different features. Like if your property has a 4th bedroom, you might get a $5,000 or $10,000 increase in value. Or if your property has 1 bathroom and the other comparables has 2, they might decrease $5,000 worth of value. So they just do that. But, y'all are all smart out there. You could run rough numbers without having to pay $500 for an appraisal, right? So to get accurate comparables, it's essential to compare properties with the similar characteristics. Location, properties in the same neighborhood or a radius of no more than a mile. So obviously the closer the better. To be honest with you, this should be a half mile. But if you're in a rural area and it's like cow country and cow town in the farmland somewhere, Obviously, you're going to have to widen the aperture, widen the scope. But typically, if you're in an urban area or mid market where it has a population of over 500,000 people, and you're in an urban area, you can use a neighborhood less than a quarter mile. Typically, you don't like to go across big expressways, big highways, and big main roads. Try to stay within that circumference, so to speak, right? Size. So homes within a 10 to 20% range of square footage. Typically, the traditional row house in Baltimore is 1,400 square feet, give or take. So 10 to 20% of that is, what's that? 140, right? Less, plus or minus. So plus would be 1,540, minus would be 1,260. So just in that range, 10 to 20%. Because again, this is all homes. It's not going to be perfect. In some cases, the beauty about row homes, for the most part, they're all the same, right? Especially if they're in that same little vicinity, they're going to be the same exact house, like literally so easy to comp. That's why I love Baltimore. Now, in other markets where it's like rural and single family, it might be a little bit harder, but you'll just get a general rule of thumb the more you do it. Condition is another important factor because you got to compare apples to apples, right? So if we're looking at a distressed property, we got to figure out, okay, we got to look at other distressed properties, which is the easiest way to comp, right? Like as is properties versus as is properties, or move-in ready versus move-in ready properties. Excuse me. So again, this is comparing comparables. Now, when you're doing the after repair value, that's when you're looking at properties that are already repaired. So we're looking at the highest value of the property once you fix it up. So that's a whole different formula, but we'll talk about that later. We just focus on comparables for now. Right? Type of sales, standard sales versus foreclosures, REOs, or short sales, totally different, right? Because typically foreclosures or REOs, the bank, I wouldn't call that a sale because the bank just took over whatever the loan amount is. It doesn't matter if it's $20,000 left or $200,000. They're just going to take over the house, and it's obviously they don't care about the value. They just want to get the house back, and it's pretty much closing out a file and getting the property back. Versus a standard sale where an actual buyer came in and said, "This is what I want to pay for the property." So the best way to understand true value for anything, I'm talking about cars, I'm talking about clothes, I'm talking about sneakers, obviously homes, is the value is determined ultimately by the buyer. So whatever the buyer is willing to pay for it, that's what the value is going to be. So you could want $1 million for your property, and if there is no willing and able buyer that wants to spend $1 million, then guess what? The buyer is going to determine what your property is worth, right? So if 3 people come and say, "Hey, I could do 500,000," then 9 times out of 10, that's what your property is worth. All right, and also buyers want to see that the deal is well researched, making it easier to gain trust, see the potential for profit, and close deals. Buyers have their own business models, right? Whether that's fix and flippers, buy and holders, they are busy doing the day-to-day functions of their business. So the easier you make it for them, the easier they'll make a decision and the faster you'll get paid. It's just that simple. You just got to do the upfront research, just try to figure out what they want and figure out how they like it served on a silver platter. Once you do that, you'll be able to close deals a lot quicker and make this thing running like clockwork. Right? So it's all about understanding your buyer's needs. So when you have a better determination of how to calculate your numbers, it helps you quickly assess whether a deal is worth pursuing or not, right? By accurately estimating the ARV, the MAO, it can help better understand the return as far as the profit margins for the end buyers. And that way they know if it's a deal that's going to work for them. because not every deal you send out is going to work for every single buyer, okay? But all it takes is one verified, solid buyer to get the deal done and to get paid. All right. So a part of figuring out the comps. All right. So next slide. How to find comps. Comps is very important to determine value, so that way you can figure out whether it's a good deal or not. Here's a couple ways how to find comps, right? MLS. So the most comprehensive source of real-time property data accessible through real estate agents or brokers. So depending on your market, whether you work with an agent, which I highly recommend to have an agent on your team or to have access to MLS, those are going to be the best source of finding verified properties that are sold. So definitely, if you don't got your license, I highly recommend you get it. If not, if you're just starting out, network and connect and talk to and get to know, build relationships with a lot of realtors, whether they're experienced or they're just young and hungry and got the time and patience to work with you. Either way, just build those relationships, y'all, because there's a lot of great tools online. MLS is the best way, but there's very good data providers nowadays. So Zillow is just as good. Redfin, Realtor.com, they're all free, easy to use platforms. I don't even use realtors. I just like to do my comps with Zillow, and I'll show y'all that in a minute. But if you love data and you want to take it up a notch and you want to spend a little money, there's tools like Privy, which is like a real estate software or a data provider platform, which gives you access to basically the MLS service. Privy is really good for on-market data. And then there's also Deal Machine. Deal Machine has tons of data, right? We talked about them before as far as motivated sellers. You can also build a cash buyers list, and it has built-in features which allows you to search for a property address and provide you with a list of comps for you to choose from. I think they also got like an AI feature that can tell you what the maximum allowable offer is, which is super cool. So yeah, it's a bunch of different tools, right? Actually, I'm gonna test that in a few. So in short, researching comps ensures you can accurately determine the value of a property, make informed offers, and present credible deals to buyers, leading to a higher likelihood of success. All right, that's all we're trying to do, is just increase your likelihood of success and trying to reduce as much risk as possible for you, especially if you're new, just starting out, or if you got a little experience and you're still trying to figure your way around the system. This is the best way to do it, y'all. So I'm gonna show y'all how I find comps, right? So in a minute, just a minute. Actually, I could do it right now. Better yet, I'm gonna do it after we do the ARV. So that way I'm gonna do everything. I'm gonna find the comps, calculate the ARV, and do it all. So ARV, after repair value, right? The first thing you gotta do is research comparable properties. Okay, we talked about comps, which is similar properties in the neighborhood. What you want to do is find 3 recently sold properties similar in size, condition, and location, right? This is exactly what appraisals do. We can do it just about, the same, if not better than most appraisers, right? Step 2, you want to match key features. So you got to compare apples to apples, right? So it got to be the same or similar within a nice reasonable range. Square footage, number of bedrooms and bathrooms, lot size, year built, condition, renovated versus distressed. You got to make sure you're comparing apples to apples. I can't stress that enough. Step 3, adjust for differences. So if your property has a 3-bedroom, 1 bath, right? Let's just say the comps are showing 4-bedroom, 2 baths. Typically, I like to add a bedroom and add a bathroom in the basement. So obviously, you're going to have to add value to their property or decrease maybe $5,000 or $10,000 from yours, right? Subtract value from missing amenities or interior condition. In step 4, you just want to average out the sales price. Calculate the average sale price for the comps to estimate the property's potential value after repairs. All right. And last but not least, I don't know if y'all can see that. I knew it was going to do that. Last but not least, you want to verify. We got to go through this again. What's going on? What's going on, Keynote? There we go. We got to verify, right? Reach out to buyers, another wholesaler, or mentor to verify your numbers are accurate. So as I said before, you got to leverage the experience of a cash buyer. If you don't, or if you just want a second opinion, feel free to reach out to another experienced wholesaler, not nobody that's a newbie, someone that you know for sure has closed deals in your market, because every market is different. And last but not least, reach out to a mentor such as myself or a colleague that's within the First Flip family that's a little bit more ahead of you and you trust and rely on their confidence. Just tap in with them to just verify your numbers is accurate. Again, it's always good to do your homework up front and just run it by another person just to make sure you're on the same page. That's the best thing to do. All right. So, example of an ARV. Comps allow wholesalers to estimate the average repair value of a property by comparing it to similar properties that have recently sold in the same area. This helps establish how much the property could sell for after renovations are complete, which is crucial for setting a profitable offer price. That's pretty much self-explanatory. I feel like we're being a dead horse right now, right? So ARV, after repair value, is the average sales price of comps. We're going to pick 3 comps, remember? Plus adjustments for conditions / upgrades. Copy? All right. So 5900 Darien Court. I thought I saw a slide that said 5900 Darien Court. Where's that? Okay, here it is. 5900 Darien Court. That's a property I got under contract right now. And let me just show you just a brief scenario of what this will look like, right? So the first thing you want to do is find comps. What I like to do is go on Zillow because it's easy, quick. This shouldn't take you more than 15 minutes. Obviously, if you're just starting out, spend a little more time, practice, do your research, but walk with me, right? So 5900 Darien Court. Luckily, this shows that it's a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, right? It's actually 1 bathroom. A lot of times Zillow public records are wrong. This is actually a 3-bedroom, 1-bath, right? So let me put that in the presentation in the notes section. Notes, 3-bedroom, 1-bath, 1,200 square feet. Okay. So that's what we want to try to compare as much as possible to. So let's see the first property we could find in that 1/4 mile radius. So what we want to do is, let's make this a little bit bigger. We want to look, this is the property right here, 5900 Darien Court. There you go. So we want to look in this little pocket in this neighborhood to see what properties have sold that are in similar conditions, similar bedrooms and bathroom count, similar square footage, to make sure to determine the value, right? So what you're going to do is you're going to filter, select sold, and we want to look at the newest properties that have sold, right? So the first one that has sold for 175, this is a 3-2, right? This is an older property. It's kind of dated, right? They got drop ceilings. So we're not going to use this. We're trying to look for new fresh comps, something that has been fixed up already, right? In the last 6 months. You got 5230 Darien Court. This is a little bit better, but it's not really a flip, right? It's sold for 190, which is great, but it's still not like a staged brand new flip. You could tell they did a little updates themselves with the kitchen, but it ain't like fly. This one sold for 236 in April. This is a good one, right? They got new appliances. It's staged, or it ain't staged. It's just clean. It's a lot cleaner, a lot more updates. So I'm gonna use this one, even though it's pushing 6 months. I'm gonna use this one because it's so close. So let's put that down. 236.6. Property 1 is 5248 Darien Road. 4-bedroom, 2-bath, 1152 square foot, right? And that sold 236 on April 10th, 24. Okay, so we got property 1. Remember, we're looking for 3 properties in the past 6 months, ideally. Now, if it looks like it's going out past 6 months, March is kind of out there. We want to be no later than April, right? So since we're not seeing anything that's recent in directly in this neighborhood, we're gonna zoom out a little bit. So I'm gonna just click this minus button here on the bottom one time, then it's gonna zoom out just a little bit. You see this line right here? This demarcation is actually the city and the county line. So on this side of things, it's the county. On this side, it's the city. So typically, you like to stay on the city side of things, right? So with that being said, we want to stay like half a mile, quarter mile, right? So this one is a good one, right? 5311 Todd Avenue. Even though I'm a little bit hesitant to use it because you kind of go past this major road, but it's still good because it's recent and it's very similar as far as bedrooms. It's just one additional bathroom and it's super new. Baltimore, for the most part, townhouses are the same. They're going to get the same value, right? So that one sold for $246 in October. October what? I lost it already. 246 in October. 1536, 3-bedroom, 2 baths. Okay. 1536. And it's a 3-2. Right? Boom. Now let's get one more property. One more. Let me see this one. This one's a little small. Doesn't look like the renovation. It doesn't have granite countertops. It's a little dated. So I'm not going to use this one. I'm going to use something that's nice. This looks nice on the outside. It looks like they cleaned it out. New windows. You see they got mulch. So they did their little thing. Okay, new cabinets, new appliances, granite, new fixtures. Yeah, this is a nice flip. This is pretty cool. Even though the layout is different, they got the stairs in the middle. But for the most part, it's still a townhouse, right? It's still, 3 bedrooms upstairs. They got carpet up there. 1 bathroom, 1 main bathroom upstairs. And this is the basement. They got like a living area. And then I guess this is the bedroom here. Wow, it's pretty big. They calling this a bathroom? Okay. I guess it's a half bath. I guess you could call that. Okay. All right. That was pretty cool. Not the nicest flip, but this is recent, right? 230, 1010. And it's a what? 1440 square feet. So this is property 2. This one sold 1010 as well. Wait. 1010, 1025. Okay. That's a lot going on. I'm trying to make some room for everything. Right. Okay. Then we could fit property 3 on this right-hand side. Property 3. It was what? 57. This is why I need 2 screens, I promise you. 5470 Sedonia Avenue. Sold for $230, all right? 5470 Sedonia Avenue. Okay, Sedonia Avenue. And there was a 4-bedroom too. I believe it was 1440. 1440 square feet. 1010. I think this one sold for 1025 on 1025. I believe this one sold for 230. I'm gonna double check. And let me just make sure I got everything. Okay, so 4-2, 1440 for 230. This was a 3-2, 1536, 246. And it was 5311 Todd Avenue. So, all right, bet. We got 3 properties. It's crazy because the 3-bedroom, 2-bath sold for the most, 246. This one sold for 236, and this one sold for 230. Right? So we have a 3-1. Now, they all have basements, which included mine's is, because I know from the pictures. I'm not going to waste your time to show you my pictures. But what we can do is add an addition. They have space to add an additional bedroom and add an additional bathroom. So what we just going to do is we're just going to take $5,000 off the ARV, right? So let's go back. So we got 3 properties. That was step 1, right? Find 3 recently sold properties. Now we got to match key features. So square footage should be within 10 to 20% of subject property. This is 1,200 square feet. This is 1,152. This is 1,250. 10 to 20%. So 10% is 120. 20% is 240. So what's that? 1,440. So yeah, this and this one is within line. This one may be a little bit more. So maybe that's why they sold for the highest, right? So these 2 are more so in range. So I'm going to take this one out of the equation, but I'm going to keep these 2. All right, so far. Now, what else? What else is next? A part of the steps. Number of bedrooms, bathrooms, year built, all that good stuff. Now we adjust for differences, right? Add value for features like an extra bedroom or upgraded finishes. Subtract value for missing amenities or interior conditions. We're going to subtract value because they both have a bedroom and a bath, right? They have an additional bedroom and a bath. So typically they like to take away $5K for each addition feature. So $5K times, because remember, it only has 3 bedrooms, so it's missing a bedroom, and 1 bath, so it's missing a bath. So that's 2 features. That equals a negative 10,000, right? I hope y'all following me. It's getting a little nerdy, all right? We're getting a little math whiz, but I'm telling you, this is so important, right? So we adjusted for the features, right? And last but not least, we want to verify. We want to average the sales. So what we're going to do is we're just going to we're going to take this one out of the equation. We're just going to focus on these 2. So in order to find the average, we're going to do 230 plus 236, and then you divide it by 2. So I should have had Excel up. Okay, here we go. I should have did this in Excel. Not really Excel buff, but I like Excel because it has a calculator, right? So 1 property sold for 236. 1 property sold for 230. Right? So we add the 2. And then we divide the 2 by the total amount to get the average. And this is your ARV right here. Okay, let me put that decimal sign. Make that a little bigger. 233. But wait, the final thing is we got to adjust for the features, right? Because we only got a 3-bedroom, 1 bath, we got to take away, we got to compare apples to apples and just make an adjustment for that. So we're going to do, we're going to do equals minus the 10K. 2, 3. And this is your ARV, 220, 223. 223 should be your ARV. All right. I wasn't timing myself, but that's pretty much how you calculate the ARV, right? So now we got the ARV. Now we can know how much. Now we got to back in how much to offer, right? So I'm going to just keep that right there. I'm going to put this in the presentation. Let's just put ARV up here, right? Well, let me just create a brand new thing. Brand new situation. ARV, we already found that. It's 223,000, right? Boom. We got that. It's right here. Let me change the color a little bit. Make it green. All right, boom. So let's keep that in mind as we go through the presentation, okay? So we got one part of the calculation. So a buyer's going to ask you, oh, you're going to hit them up like, hey, I got this property under contract. First thing he's going to ask you is, what's the ARV? What's the after repair value? Let them know, like, look, I ran some comps. I seen 3, but I really like 2. That's really most recent and most comparable. It's typically, it comes in around 223. It's the ARV. Like, all right, okay, cool. The next thing he's going to ask you is, how much is your price? How much you want for it, right? So the next part of this presentation, I'm going to show you how to get the price, right? And that involves MAO, maximum allowable offer, okay? So follow me, right? This is just all acronyms. This is all real estate lingo, nothing too fancy, just pretty basic, all right? This is the maximum allowable offer that you can offer to the motivated seller, right? Kind of jumping the gun. But yeah, so MAO is the highest price you can offer on a property to ensure that both you, the wholesaler, and the end buyer can make a profit, right? Because at the end of the day, that's what we do. We sell equity to the end buyer and we sell good deals. So it's a critical formula in wholesaling real estate to avoid overpaying for a deal, right? The MAO is calculated by considering the after repair value, estimating repair cost, and a profit margin for both you and the buyer, right? Now, realtors. Some real estate agents specialize in working with investors, particularly those interested in distressed properties, flips, or rentals. You can also call stage flips because these investors are looking for another project, right? So that's just a quick tip on how to actually find cash buyers, how to get a good sense of what the ARV is. Because if you look at listed properties, typically they're trying to get the highest for it. Now, you don't want to use properties that are on the market as an ARV because, again, you can put a property up for sale for $2 million, right? But if a buyer doesn't want to pay that, that's not the value. So that's why we use sold properties to determine value. Public data, we talked about this, deal machine, prop stream, to get cash buyers and to determine the maximum allowable offer. Right? So why is MAO important? So maximum allowable offer is important because it protects profit margins. By calculating your maximum allowable offer, you ensure there's enough margin for profit after repairs and other expenses are covered. Right? So it guides offer strategy. It prevents overpaying for a property, which could lead to losing money or difficulty finding a buyer. Right? So that's the number one hiccup when it comes to wholesalers. We do not know how to evaluate properties. We don't do research on the front end to accurately estimate what a good price is. So this is why it's important, because you're going to end up losing money on marketing. You're going to end up losing time selling a deal, and it could be a nightmare. So definitely you want to do your homework up front, right? But at the end of the day, you got to feed the cash buyers because that's who pays you. So investors want to buy properties that leave room for their own profit, and calculating a fair MAO dramatically increases your chances of closing a deal. Right? We talked about that earlier. The MAO formula looks like this. It's a formula, y'all. So for y'all That's not math friendly. I promise you, it's really, really easy. We just talking about basic algebra. So it's the ARV, which we figured out in the last example, times the discount percentage minus repair costs minus your wholesale fee. All right. So far, using that same example, 5900 Darien Court, we have the ARV, right? I believe it was 223 times the discount percentage is typically 70% minus repair costs. So this is obviously it varies based on the property's condition, right? And your wholesale fee. Minimum, I want you to put 15,000 in here. Minimum. All right? Because your time and your effort and energy is worth $15,000 for sure. Don't shortchange yourself. So let's break it down. After repair value, y'all know what that is already. We did that. Discount percentage. This is usually the standard, 70%. It's just a general rule. I don't know who came up with it, but this is what everyone has adopted. Wholesaling, it's best to buy property that's 70% of ARV, leaving room for profit after repairs. Now, I believe, I don't know for sure, but I think this discount percentage comes from hard money lenders, because hard money lenders, which most fix and flippers use, they might say is cash. Like, no, 9 times out of 10, they're using a lender, and the lender requirements typically is around 70, somewhere between 70 to 80% that they want to see of a discount to leave room for profit, right? Because it also accounts for potential resale costs. You got agent fees, you got closing costs, you got a bunch of fees, you got holding fees, and obviously the buyer's desired profit margin. So it just leaves a good margin in there. In some markets, you may use a higher percentage. Like I know some parts of Cali, they using like 80 and 90%. But in other markets, you know, it may be a little lower. Actually, this should be the reverse. Competitive markets is higher because it's hot. So California, like over West Coast, Washington, some parts of Miami, Fort Lauderdale, some parts of Houston, some parts of Texas. The ARV, the discount percentage is going to be higher. I'm going to say in competitive markets, it's going to be 85 to sometimes even 90% of the ARV, right? In competitive markets are 75 to 80 in high-end markets, yeah. All right, so that's pretty much the formula, right? Another big part of the formula is estimating repair costs. Now, I know when you're just starting out, you're like, how am I supposed to figure out what things cost to repair? And this is where you have to leverage your resources. You have to, when you go to these networking events, which we talked about in the last module, you have to network with contractors, network with agents, network with realtors, network with lenders, talk to people, okay? Because this is going to help you understand the market, understand your numbers, and ultimately being successful in this business, right? It's a people's business. I tell people that all the time. So if you don't know how to repair costs when you first starting out, leverage contractors. Feel free to call them. They'll give you free estimates, right? So estimating repair costs includes all the costs required to bring the property to its after repair value condition, right? Accurate estimates are essential. Too low and you or your buyer may lose profit, and too high and you just might miss out on a good deal. So you just got to make sure it's as accurate as possible, because if you come in too low, that means that if your estimated repairs are low, then what is lower than what it should be, that means you're going to offer a higher price. And then when you try to sell it at that higher price, and buyers that have a higher estimate repair costs, they're going to be like, yo, I cannot make money on this because the repair cost is $60,000. How am I going to make money? Meanwhile, you budgeted $20,000, and that's a deal killer right there. And same thing, vice versa. It's on the same situation. So, I mean, but then again, if your repair costs are too high, and you get a good deal, you could get a good deal that way. Let's just say that same property, you estimate $100,000 worth of repairs. That means your offer is gonna come in lower than other competitors, right? So if you are able to get a deal on the contract, that's great. But 9 times out of 10, and especially in competitive markets, that means other offers are going to be way higher than yours, which means that you ultimately can lose out on a good deal. So that's why it's just important to be accurate as possible, right? And the wholesale fee, right? That's pretty much standard. I told y'all 15,000 is the minimum. That's it. So wholesaling fees typically range from 10 to 20. Like I said, 15,000. Just have it in your head. 15,000. Just keep that right where it should be. All right. So here's an example of the maximum allowable offer. We talked about the rule percentage of 70%. Let's just say the after repair value is 300,000. The rehab estimate is 100,000. Well, this should be 100,000. The maximum allowable offer is 200,000. Well, no, you got to factor in your wholesale fee, so it should be $185,000. So this is just a quick little snippet on how to calculate that, and then I could just do it in the Excel spreadsheet, right? So using the same example, we have an ARV of 223,000, right? So let me just put the address. This is the ARV. So we do 70% rule, right? Keep doing that. Okay, so times 70%. We got 156,000, right? So that's the discounted rule. Then next up is your estimated repair costs. Whatever the repair cost is, we're going to subtract that, and then your wholesale fee. We know for a fact the wholesale fee is 15,000. Right? So repair costs. So how much is it to repair Darien Court? Luckily for you, I actually got a contractor to give me an estimate, right? I think I did. I think I should have it in here. I hope I do. Where is it? Estimate. Believe. Let me see. It should be in here somewhere. Let me put Darien Court. This is live, y'all. We doing this live. Nick. Yeah, Nick is a contractor. Here we go. All right, bet. So look, we got I actually called, because this is actually a short sale, and we had to get estimates to make sure that the appraisal factors in, how much it's going to cost. Typically, with short sales, they don't always factor in your repair costs. They got their own formula, but, it helps. It definitely doesn't hurt to provide an estimate. But it also helps us in factoring out numbers, right? So for the estimate, again, this is a free estimate. Most contractors are willingly ready and able to give you a free estimate. So I told them, look, I want to do a full renovation, just repairing everything, right? So the scope of work, you got dumpsters in there, we got new plumbing, we got permits, we got adding a bathroom, adding 2 bathrooms, right? We're framing 2 bathrooms. Cost for labor, replacing windows. Basically, the whole thing is going to come to $87,304, right? So that's the repair estimate. I don't want you to take up too much time. You should get like 3 to 4 quotes with a contractor, but just for this property, we just got 1. If I was you, I would recommend getting at least 3 to 4. All right, so we got everything we need. So the ARV, right? Then we times that by 70%. So 70% of ARV is 156. Then we minus the repair costs. Then we back out the wholesale fee. And voila, this is your maximum allowable offer, right? This is your MAO. Meaning, if we were to negotiate with the homeowner to make $15,000 profit, this is where we have to be in order to make a profit, right? 53, we cannot spend no more than $53,796. So if we get the price lower, let's say we get it for $53,000, that means we theoretically should make $15,796, right? So yeah, this is just a good baseline to let you know, like, this is where I need to be at before having an appointment, before talking to the seller, before negotiation. This is where I need to be to make the numbers work for a fix and flip. Now, in the previous slides, I told y'all that buy and hold investors typically pay more for properties. Reason being is because they're not going to put 80 to 90,000 in a property. They may put just half that, right? So let's just say, for just example's sake, an investor only wanted to put 43,000 because he's a retail buyer. Now that drastically changes things, right? So your numbers definitely can depend based on what type of buyer you're working with. I like to work with buy and holds and just make the most amount of money so it could be a win-win all the way around. All right. So if we was to, get a different repair estimate and I told them, look, I just want to fix it up to rent it out, this number would be a lot less. I promise you that. Almost half for sure. So this is just a good example of just how to run numbers from scratch, right? And again, this number changes too based on the market, fluctuations. Hot market during COVID, it was actually closer to like 80%. So it just really varies. It really varies. You got to pay attention. So yeah, I just want to give you all that quick breakdown to show you how to calculate your maximum allowable offer, right? So now that y'all know the basics, let me show y'all a little shortcut. Y'all probably gonna kill me, but Deal Machine, which is what I use to find property, driving for dollars. I actually use it as a great source to get phone numbers to call the sellers that once we find a property, we drive around and we put them in Deal Machine and we just take them out and we call them up. They also have direct mail in here. But a good thing about it, what they have is once you sign up, they actually have a lot of great features and they pretty much are very data driven and they could do your homework for you, right? So what I mean by that is anytime you want to look up comps or value and you're not sure what to or how to calculate ARV, they have an info comps tab. They could look up comps directly for you right here. But what's even better than that is this little glowing button right here on the bottom. This is like their integrated artificial intelligence, and it's able to make the calculations on a dime, right? Now, it's not the most accurate. I know they still like working out the kinks, but it's pretty good. It's pretty good. So let's see what they say about this property. Right? So it says, hi, Alma, I'm your real estate AI assistant. I'm still learning, so cut me some slack. See, I told y'all it's still in the works. So you could say, analyze this property. What kind of investment strategy are you looking to use? See, so wholesaling, fix and flip, buy and hold. So in this case, we're wholesalers, right? So let's see what they do. So the property has an original loan amount of $202,000. There is no specific estimated loan balance. Therefore, we will assume the property is free and clear, meaning there's no outstanding loan balance. Given this situation, the maximum allowable offer of $62,552.70 would be considered without the need to pay off a current loan. Consequently, this situation could potentially make a good wholesale deal. All right. So look, they basically factor in the loan balance to get an idea of how to determine a maximum allowable offer, right? So they came up with $62,552.70 as a wholesale deal. So if y'all remember, I think the quote was 87,000, right? And we came up with 54. So that's pretty close, in my opinion. That's pretty in line. $53,796. They came up with 62,000. So again, it's good to know the basics and the principles, but technology, don't be afraid to use it and just compare the two, right? And merge the two. Maybe it could be the average of both, right? Somewhere in the middle. So this is a great resource. I highly, highly, highly recommend you get Deal Machine to just help you analyze and find property numbers. It does so much. Like it's ridiculously a great tool and a resource. I literally use it every day in my business, so you should too. All right. So that's pretty much it on determining maximum allowable offer. So here's a few things to consider while you're doing it, right? You want to factor in market conditions. Like I said earlier, market conditions may change based on the local market and may change based on what's going on, whether it's a hot market, whether it's a cold market. So, buyers may accept smaller margins and you can use a different price point. It's just all based on talking to buyers, talking to other wholesalers, talking to realtors to get a good understanding of where they typically like to buy at. Because again, everybody has different, investment strategies, and the markets heavily factor in which investment strategy is right to use. So you got to stay tuned in and talk to people. You got to talk to people that know what's going on in the field. Another thing is repair accuracy, right? So misjudging repair costs can make or literally break your deal. So consider getting quotes from contractors or experienced investors to refine your estimates. That's what I showed you in an example with Darien Court. And wholesale fee flexibility. All right, so be flexible with your wholesale fee to make deals work. In tight margins, you need to lower your fee slightly to ensure the deal closes. When you first starting out, man, you just want to get as much deals done as possible. You don't want to be, I know the goal is minimum 15,000, but granted, there's going to be times where, the buyer might only can do a number that makes sense for him to make money. And unfortunately, it may reduce your assignment fee to $10,000, right? And at the end of the day, you just want to be a good steward of finding deals and just focusing on that. Because when you have deals on the contract, you want to be able to move them quickly so you can get to the next one, right? Not only that, too, you want to be a man of your word. So for me, like there's been times where I haven't made any money on a deal. I've just made it close just to make sure I kept my word with the motivated seller, right? Because we got to remember that we have a property under contract with someone that's banking on you to close this deal. So there might be cases where you're not going to make money, but at the end of the day, your reputation is very, very important in this business. And you don't want to tarnish it over a couple $1,000s. Trust me. All right. We got to think long. We got to play the long game. Got to play the long game. All right, so once you do all the numbers, you got the ARV, you got the MAO, you want to finalize that things. That means you got to double check your comps. Just revisit the comps one more time. Sometimes you may just got to estimate the ARV. Just reconsider some things. Just ensure the comps are recently sold, right? You want to focus on the ones no later than 6 months. Excuse me. You want to make sure they are similar in size, condition, location, subject property as much as possible, right? And adjust for differences and things like that. Also, you want to finalize the repair costs. We understand how important repair costs can be. Include a 10 to 15% buffer for any unexpected costs, obviously. And final review, right? Use your finalized MAO to calculate how much profit is left over for the buyer after the property is flipped. This ensures your offer is attractive to cash buyers, because that's who pays us, cash buyers. So we want to make sure we're giving them good deals. All right. Make sure it creates a win-win for the situation for the seller and the end buyer, right? And hopefully you, when you make that wholesale fee, because that's the goal. All right. At the end of the day, this ain't a nonprofit. We're trying to make some money too. So just to summarize some things, We trying to make data-driven decisions. All right, data beats emotions any time of the day, especially when it comes to knowing your numbers and understanding different markets when it comes to real estate. Okay, so definitely you're gonna get challenged on all these things. You're gonna get challenged on your comps. You're gonna get challenged on your repair estimates. But if you have the comps, like, look, this is what I pulled up. Here's what, like, talk to me, cash buyer. What do you see? And you just kind of share information that way. But once you have actual comps and it shows that you did your homework, they will respect you a lot more. So it's important to have the data behind your results and your decisions. All right. History rhymes. Comps calibrate price. You got to make sure that comps determine the price, and you got to make sure that they're as accurate as possible, right? Obviously, if you talk to 3 different appraisals, you might get 3 different property values, right? Same thing when it comes to comps. You might have different comps than the cash buyer or another wholesaler, but at the end of the day, you want to be within reason and within range, right? Identify value. ARV ensures informed, profitable decision making. All right. After repair value is super important in this business. That's going to be the number one question you get asked from cash buyers. So just make sure you got your numbers ready. Maximum allowable offer protects your profit, provides a solution, and ensures buyers can make money. All right. I'm going to provide y'all with the MAO calculator just so that way y'all could have it in hand. I'm going to actually attach it a part of the documents or the tools section. So definitely be out on the lookout for that. I want to make sure y'all are successful and are getting deals done, right? Because at the end of the day, accuracy is everything, right? So once you do all your homework, you pull the comps, you pull the ARV, you calculate the MAO, just make sure to recheck it and make sure you talking to people and just run it by other eyes just to make sure you on point, okay? Because you may gloss over something, you may provide a little hiccup, but it's just good to run it by a second set of eyes. So in short, knowing your numbers allows wholesalers to act quickly, minimize risk, and consistently close profitable deals. That's why knowing your market, understanding numbers, how to calculate the MAO, the ARV, and pulling up comps is such an important skill set. It's always good to work on it. Even after you close deals, you still got to work on that skill. You got to constantly look at property and just to get a good idea of where the market is going, and just get a good foothold on your market and what's going on. All right. So as we land this plane, if y'all found that this module was super valuable, or if you didn't, let me know. Let me know. Feel free to leave a testimonial, leave a review. I'm giving away a prize or 2, so definitely click on the link and let me know how y'all feel, because this is for free. Like, I can't believe I'm giving this away for free. Like, I've spent tens of thousands of dollars just to gain this knowledge, and I'm giving it back away. So to wrap this up, right, I'm gonna leave off with a quote like I always do, with the late great. Warren Buffett's still alive. My bad, Warren, the OG Warren. Warren Buffett once said, "Price is what you pay, value is what you get." I could also put a quote from Jay-Z in here. He says, "People know the value." No, he said, "People know the price of everything, but the value of nothing." All right, price and value is 2 totally different things. Okay, so I saw a post the other day that said, look, a water bottle such as this is 50 cents in the grocery store, it's $2 in the gym, it's $4 at the movie theaters, and you know, it's really based on where it's at and where it's given the most value. That's what the price is going to determine. All right. So people pay for price, people pay for value. You got to just know the difference, and you got to know the value that you provide. All right. What we do as wholesalers are super valuable, and you just got to make sure you believe in yourself and know your worth. All right. So that pretty much wraps it up for Market Mastery, and I'll see y'all on the next module. Peace.